You don't always know that someone's grieving. It's so internal.
The most natural thing that it felt to do in that moment was to absolutely, gutturally scream.
I was blocking my ears. It shook me to my core and I felt your energy, 100%.
I think there's nothing like death to remind us of how valuable life is.
I'd love for us to get to a less awkward stage of grief. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Good Grief. Welcome to our lounge room once again. I'm joined by my husband Ryan, and today we're going to be answering the question of what is the difference between grief and mourning? But before we get into that, we had an exciting last week, didn't we?
Well, exciting weekend.
Yes.
And last week, yeah. It's flying by. I can't believe it's September, so...
I know. Our little girl turned 5 months yesterday.
I was going to say, get the Christmas tree out.
Oh, just about, hey.
Nearly time.
Well, where is it? Philippines, they do?
Yes.
Yeah. We love our
This
Filipinos.
is the most confusing intro. Is everyone still with us? We're jumping around. Our minds are going a million miles an hour. But good to be back. Yeah, we went on our first family holiday with our bub on a plane.
Her first plane ride.
She did well. A couple of tears, as to be imagined, by a little one with turbulence and
A little bit of protesting.
pressure.
But she did so well. And I just figured out that her first train ride was the steepest train in the world.
Crazy.
Ryan's mother took us to Scenic World in the Blue Mountains, and there they have the steepest train in the world. It's 52-degree angle, and that was our daughter's first train ride. And
she handled it better than all of us five
she was
adults.
like, guys, what are you screaming about? What's happening?
It was awesome.
She's the best.
So if you're from Australia, you probably know the Blue Mountains. If you're not from Australia, Google it. It's like the equivalent of the Grand Canyon for us. But instead of being red rock, empty and bare, it's covered in trees and wildlife.
Yeah, like blue gums.
Yeah.
That's why they have that blue tinge to them.
Yeah, so good fun weekend, but we're back.
We're back.
We're ready for the week ahead. We've got an incredible session this week inside of our Good Grief Club with Christine Wren on the journey of grief and loss. She's going to be talking about navigating the torrents of grief. And I've just come back literally from hanging out, having coffee with her for like an hour and a half.
So good.
And just preparing
I'm jelly.
for everything that's going to be inside the session. And I can just say, if you're joining us for that, you're in for a treat. If you're not joining us, there's still time. There is a link we've put in the description below that you can jump in and get access to our Good Grief Club for free. And you can get access to that live workshop, which is happening this week on Thursday morning or Wednesday night, depending on where you are in the world. But all the details are inside the events tab. When you create your account and jump in there, you'll get access. But Christine, she's incredible. She's she's walked her own journey for 25 years of different grief.
Yeah,
and
many types of grief.
I'm not going to give her story away because we'll also have her on the podcast at some point.
Gotta keep some mystery too.
Yep. But many griefs, from losing loved ones very early in her life to also separation to her. Yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but she's walked people
tragedy
through grief for 25 years. She's going to be speaking to the 10 different types of grief that there are, and then also the spiritual aspect of grief and loss, and the prophetic as well. She's got a number of different words that she's prepared, and then also an activation that we're going to have everyone take part in on the call. So
Cool.
It's going to be pen and paper on Zoom. It's going to be incredible.
Oh, activations are powerful. And Christine just always brings gold. She's such a wise woman, and she's fun and funny and just a wealth of wisdom too, isn't she?
She's wise and no BS.
Yeah.
She does not fluff around.
Yeah,
with
if
her
you're coming to
words.
hide in the corner.
Yeah, she's wonderful. So she's a weapon, and
super anointed.
yeah. So
Amazing woman.
Looking forward to that session. So again, if you haven't or you don't know the details, jump on the Good Grief Club link in the description below. You can join, like we said, for free and get access to that call, which usually she charges a couple of $100 for.
Yeah.
And she's an author. She's got her 7th book coming out.
Oof.
So she's been around and she knows what she's talking about. So it's going to be good. All right.
Let's go.
Today.
Yeah.
What's the difference between grief and mourning? It's such a big question because I didn't know those terms were separate or different until I lost Dad. Like, I had no idea.
Right.
What about you?
Yeah. You'd think that it's kind of like just a similar word for the theme of grief.
The thing that happens after loss.
Yeah, something like that. Grief and mourning, kind of one and the same. But yeah, not until I went through it. Yeah, did I realize one's more of an outward expression, one's more internal.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, and this is only even in the last couple of years working it out.
Yeah, right.
It's like, oh yeah, we're not mourning anymore. It's been 12 years. So we can talk about that. I was actually with Chris this morning having this discussion talking about carrying that grief or world of mourning longer than it should. And that's a subject we will touch on the workshop as well.
Okay.
But to put it plainly, I mean, grief is something, or we've got a special guest here in the house currently.
We do.
It's my mum.
An invisible guest.
And she's here guarding the fort in case Bub wakes up, but also doing some cleaning. So thank you, Mum, if you can hear me.
Thanks, Mum.
I asked her just before. I said, Mum, on the spot, what's the difference between grief and mourning? She nailed it.
Oh, yeah?
Yep, nailed it. She
Repeat
said,
it.
Well, in verbatim,
Yep.
she said mourning is the outward expression of the grief that we have.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly right. When we mourn, we show that grief usually in a public way. That's the way that mourning takes place. It can also be private as well. But around the world, we have different cultures and socio norms and events that take place in a sense of mourning. Grief, though, on the other hand, lasts us a lifetime.
100%.
We continue grieving.
It's like a shadow.
Yes. And sometimes the shadow's more intense and sometimes it's not, but it's always there. Yeah.
I feel like recently the way I remember which one's which is like mourning. I feel like it's just a more loud, intense word. And so you can imagine like mourning, someone just like wailing and crying when I think of the word mourning. And grief, it kind of, with the F, I kind of feel like it's more like a whisper, like it's more hidden.
Sure.
Like grief, you don't always know that someone's grieving. Grief can be,
that's right.
like, because it's so internal, it can be a real hidden aspect of someone dealing with loss. Yeah.
And
but
so,
mourning is really healthy to mourn outwardly, to process that, and people obviously know by your emotions and your crying and your moods and things that you're mourning.
And what I would say about mourning is we do it really poorly because we're so embarrassed or we feel shame around it. But like if we go back maybe 4 years or so when we were heavily rock climbing, I don't know if you remember the day we were driving a few hours north to go out bush, find these cliff faces and climb. It was me, yourself, and my brother. And we were driving along the freeway. Do you remember? Or do you know what I'm going to share?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And a friend of ours he's a barber, Joe, he had cut my dad's hair before us. He'd cut mine and my brother's hair. Then my dad passed and he would share stories of Dad while we were sitting in the barber chair. And he happened to, something he would do every day. He dove into the surf at his local beach and he went headfirst into a sandbank and broke his neck. And so he was in
a coma. Hey?
He was in a coma for
5 days.
Yeah, for a while. And we were praying and, hoping.
He's got family, kids.
But, he ended up dying and we found out while we were driving to the Sunshine Coast to go rock climbing. I remember I was driving, Jordan in the backseat, he got the news on his phone and said, hey, he's passed away. And I don't know if you remember my response, but I said to you guys, just you're going to have to block your ears maybe for a moment if you want.
Yeah.
Because I had to let out that mourning inside of me, the grief inside of me. I had to let that out vocally, because the most natural thing that it felt to do in that moment was to absolutely, like, gutturally scream, yell, you know.
No, I remember it. You yell, like, even though I was blocking my ears, it like shook me to my core, and I felt your energy 100%. Like, I didn't even know Joe. I think I met him once, and your energy made me cry.
Man, wow.
Yeah.
That's what felt natural. And I felt comfortable with both of you, of course. But we don't do that when we feel like we should do that. You know, at a funeral, I haven't been to a funeral where people all start letting that out. In some cultures around the world, it's more acceptable or understood. Like we've talked about it on previous episodes, about there's people that are paid to weep and to wail, and they sort of set the precedence for it to be okay for everybody else to step into that place of mourning.
I could be one of those people.
You could totally be one of those people.
Just to chuck a lighthearted moment in there, folks. Sorry.
Yes.
Because I am one of the easiest people to cry.
Yeah, highly empathetic.
Yes.
So am I. Yeah, I am as well, but not as easy
not
as
as easy
you.
as me. If I just see someone tearing up, I'm like, oh, here it comes. Oh gosh. What was I going to say about that? What were you just saying?
Yeah, well, that's what felt natural, and it felt and it felt right, and it felt good to let that out. You know, to me, it's also the equivalent of like punching a boxing bag. It's letting out everything that's inside of you because of the love, the relationship, everything that you had or shared with that person.
And that was like me last week. Hey, I had a moment. Yeah, I had a friendship that went south for a bit, for a number of years, and I'd grieved that friendship. And unfortunately, that friend's sister passed away, and we've been in light contact over the last year and a bit. And so I just sent her a message, and then we got talking, and you know, just apologies happened back and forth, and it made us kind of start the recovery process of our friendship. And it just felt so right for me to just let out a huge wail of emotion, because I also was still like in the moment grieving what we've missed, you know, weddings, and we've started both having babies. You know, we've missed those initial moments together. So it was like, you know, we could have passed this. We could have, you know, didn't need to happen. But also like, you know, there is hope.
I think there's nothing like death to remind us of how valuable life is.
Yeah.
And so it's exactly the case that unfortunately it takes a death for us to realize far out. Life is too short to hold grudges, to leave conversations unhad, to not forgive, to walk holding things too tightly. I think that's what always is a reminder when I'm at a funeral, is like, man, it's too short.
Yeah.
I've got to pick up the phone and call that person. I've got to send that text message. I've got to give more hugs.
Yeah. I've got to hold that person tighter.
Write more cards or letters and show more love.
Be more generous. Be more hospitable.
Totally.
Hold more parties.
Yeah, 100%. And like that's, I think we're off on a rabbit hole here, but it's worth following. I think that is always a silver lining to the most tragic and unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah,
in many
I think
cases.
so. I totally agree.
So many funerals, you bump into people and you're like, I haven't seen you in years. And you might have not even had a problem, but you're like, wow, like how are you? Like, and you reconnect. So I think that's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Coming back out of the rabbit hole backwards.
Yes. Worth going down, but let's retract.
Back in the field now. So mourning. So that is, it's those, if you think about the moment your loved one passed, those feelings that erupt from inside you, that can be what mourning looks like. And there's different cultures, Jewish will mourn for, a longer period together with, 30 days, they'll stop everything and mourn. The Maori culture will actually sit with the body and lie
3 days
lie
or
with the body
something.
with 3 days.
Yeah.
And it gives people family time to travel in, to say their goodbyes, to express their love before the burial. And so there are different cultures where mourning looks differently. People will wear black when mourning to showcase that I'm in this state of mourning my loved one. But in the West, we're really not good at it.
We're not. We need to be better, people.
So, yeah, we're working on that. That's partly this podcast and these conversations, this community.
Yeah.
I would have done things differently, I reckon, if I had my time again to mourn. Now that I know more of it doesn't matter about what's acceptable, quote unquote, or not, I would have treated it differently. How about you?
No, I definitely think I would have too. I don't know. It's still a little blurry to me. I remember bits and pieces, but I know I mourned, but I think I could have done better. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I don't know if that's the right words, right? Do better.
Okay.
It's like would have done it differently.
Differently, yeah. Okay. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so if that's mourning is a period in time. It's a season. Sometimes that mourning lasts longer for some than others, but mourning effectively isn't a lifelong thing.
Yeah. No.
Grieving is, and so
Yes.
that's the difference.
Yes.
Between those initial responses and actions that we take,
Yeah.
compared to grief, which we carry around like a stone in our pocket, which we've shared before.
Yeah.
And we get the weight of the stone, or the grief doesn't change, but we get stronger and we don't notice it as much in our pocket, right? And that's the nature of grief as we go along. We're still carrying the grief. We're still carrying it closely by our side. We still feel it if we listen in and pay attention, but over time it does gradually change. The pain does lessen if you treat it right, if you surround yourself with people who know how to love you.
So grief is the emotion around that pain, anger, sadness, anxiety,
all of them.
all of those.
Confusion, overwhelm, depression.
And then mourning's the initial expression of that
That's right.
immense pain of emotions and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So there's a lot to cover there, but
Yeah.
I think understanding that's really helpful.
I think so.
I
I hope
would've-
it's been helpful to you.
I would have loved to have it
Yeah.
explained to me
Yeah.
early on.
I think it's something we should learn in school too. Because so many kids, go through grief and they don't really know what's happening to them and what's going on in their brain and all those things.
Yeah, I think in Australia, 1 in 20 kids will lose a parent by the age of 18.
That's crazy.
It's a big statistic. Yeah. And so I know that's similar in different Western countries around the world. And yeah, in school, I can remember one friend who had lost a parent, but we didn't know at all what that meant or how to deal with it. I can't remember feeling sort of too much empathy or anything, because it was sort of taboo. We didn't know what to say, so we didn't bring it up. When we went to his house, it was just his dad and his sister, and it was awkward. I had no idea how to deal with that
Yeah.
or what to do with that.
Yeah.
And he must have been in so much pain.
I'd love for us to get to a less awkward stage of grief, especially for kids out there.
Totally.
Oh, and you know what I just found out? And I just had this thought. My dad was in Papua New Guinea when Mum died, and he had to try and find his way back. And it took a couple of days because planes aren't flying every hour like they are here. And I just found out that his mum, my grandnan, her mum passed when she was in Papua New Guinea. I just put that 2 and 2 together. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
And she was only a year older than me. And so her mum would have been a similar age
when she
to
died.
my mum,
Yeah.
in her 40s or something. So she grew up and raised kids without a mum, just like me. And I've only just found this out.
Wow.
And so she would have mourned. Oh, so she only found out that her mum died by telegraph on the day of her funeral.
Yeah, because of how long it took to send a telegraph
Yeah.
and to get the message through to somebody.
Yeah. And so by the time she would have even tried to get back there, you know, it would have been weeks later.
Neither of us are going to Papua New Guinea anytime soon, all right?
No-go zone.
Moral of the story. We are going to Malaysia.
We are.
And so, side note, if you're in Malaysia, we would love to hang out with you. We've got a bit of time.
Got one lined up already.
Yeah, we're going to be hanging out with Rylan. Shout out Rylan over
our
in
new
Malaysia.
friend.
And her
awesome.
husband, Matthias.
Yep.
And so we're going to be hanging out with them. But if you're in Malaysia, please get in touch. Shoot us a message.
Yeah. Come have coffee.
Yeah, we'll look
Come
forward
show
to
us
it.
something
We're
cool.
going to climb stairs. We're going to do a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, that sounds really boring. But
Climb stairs.
if
The
you
stairs go to
Google-
caves, so that's cooler.
If you Google the Malaysian Batu Caves, you'll see the most amazing, colourful stairs in the world.
Yeah, there's stairs everywhere, but these are special stairs to caves.
That's gonna be fun. So, anyway, I think we've covered our
I
question
think
for
we've done
today.
our stint. Yeah.
The difference between grief and mourning.
I was almost going to say grief and loss, but it's grief and mourning.
Yes. Well, that's a different question.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us. Once again, if you aren't a part of our Good Grief Club yet and you'd love to join us for Chris Wren's call, amazing Chris, she's going to come and bring the power. And that is next week. So join from the link below and we'd love to have you there. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, we'll see you on the call soon. Bye for now.
See ya.